All right, let's just jump right in. You've got a 90s slasher movie on one hand and a goth rock vampire saga on the other. On the surface, you'd think Halloween H20 and Quinn of the Damned have absolutely nothing in common, right? Well, today we're going to peel back the layers and show you how they're secretly telling the exact same story. It's a story about two kinds of fear and two people who finally decide they've had enough. And this is where it all begins. In two completely different yet totally identical prisons. You've got Laurie Strode literally trying to convince herself of a lie just so she can function. And then there's the vampire Lestat, ancient, powerful, and he's landed in the exact same miserable spot, just from the other end of eternity. See, neither of them are trapped by actual walls. They're trapped in their own heads. One is haunted by a ghost, the other by the soul-crushing weight of forever. All right, so let's set the scene here. Act 1 is all about being stuck. I mean, completely and utterly frozen in place. For Laurie, we're talking 2 decades of constantly looking over her shoulder. For Lestat, it's a couple of centuries of having absolutely nothing to look forward to. Two sides of the same coin.
You have to understand, Laurie Strode is basically gone. She's buried herself under this new identity, Carrie Tate, headmistress of some fancy, remote private school. But let's be real, this isn't a new life. It's a gilded cage. She's drowning in nightmares, popping pills, drinking too much. And this so-called safe campus, it's a fortress built to keep just one person out. Her past isn't just a bad memory, you know? It's this living, breathing thing that poisons every single moment of her day.
And man, this line from her son, John, it's just brutal. This is the exact moment her private hell breaks containment. Her trauma isn't just her own problem anymore. It's a poison. And as he says, it's leaking out and destroying the one relationship she's fighting so hard to keep. Now, let's flip over to our immortal Lestat. He has everything Laurie doesn't, right? Immense power, life everlasting, can't be harmed. And yet, he's just as trapped. Think about this. He puts himself to sleep for 100 years. He's not running from a monster in a mask. He's running from existence itself. From an endless, silent, soul-crushingly lonely eternity. And just listen to his own words. A solitary, hollow existence. That's it. That's the core connection right there. Even with all his supernatural power, Lestat feels that same rot, that same decay that's eating away at Laurie's life. It really doesn't matter if you're a school principal or a vampire prince. Being truly, deeply alone, well, that's a monster all its own. But here's the thing about stories of being trapped. They're really stories about breaking free. So what happens when our heroes finally stop just taking it? When they stop reacting and start acting? This is the turning point, the moment they decide to smash the walls of their own private hells. And I want to be super clear here. This isn't an accident. It's a conscious act, a choice. Both Laurie and Lestat deliberately decide, I'm done. They're going to smash the status quo. And yeah, they know it's risky. They know it's probably going to invite all kinds of chaos. But they've reached that point where the pain of staying put is way, way worse than the fear of what comes next. So, Lestat's rebellion, it is anything but subtle. He doesn't just wake up, he explodes onto the world stage. He becomes a literal rock god for one reason, to shatter the #1 rule of vampires, secrecy. And that line he screams to the world, come out, wherever you are, that's not just some catchy song lyric. That's him screaming into the darkness, I refuse to be alone anymore, even if it gets me killed. And then you have Laurie's rebellion, which is the complete opposite. It's quiet, it's intensely personal. But believe me, it is just as earth-shattering. That one single moment where she tells her son, go, and locks that gate behind him, that is everything. That's her turning point. She's not running anymore. She's choosing her battlefield. In that instant, Carrie Tate is gone, and Laurie Strode is back. Not as a victim, but as a fighter. So what happens when you poke the bear? Or, scream into the void? Well, something screams back.
These huge acts of defiance, they don't just happen in a vacuum. No. In fact, they're the very thing that summons the literal monsters right to their doorstep.
It's almost like a cosmic law in these kinds of stories, isn't it? The second you decide you're done being haunted, guess who shows up? The ghost. By finally choosing to step out of the shadows, Lestat and Laurie basically put a giant spotlight on themselves. And their personal demons, Michael Myers and Queen Akasha, well, they were just waiting for the invitation. And check this out, the monsters that show up are a perfect mirror image of our heroes' problems. Michael Myers is just the shape. He's not a person, he's pure, unkillable trauma. He is Laurie's past come to life. And Queen Akasha? She's the flip side. She's pure, all-consuming desire. She's the dark, twisted version of the power and connection that Lestat was craving so badly. And that, of course, brings us to the final reckoning, the main event. But this isn't just about staying alive. No, this is a battle for their very souls. If they want to be free, they have to turn around and face the living, breathing embodiment of their fear head on. Now, Laurie's final battle is just a masterclass in taking back control. For 20 years, she was the prey. But now, on her turf, she flips the script completely. She becomes the hunter. Oh, the fear is definitely still there, but now she's using it. She's forged it into a weapon. This is a one-on-one fight to the death. And the prize is her own life, her own identity. And the way this plays out is just incredible. First, she sets the trap. Then she fights him through the school, a place she knows like the back of her hand. And then, and this is the best part, she chases him down. She hijacks the coroner's van to make sure he's not getting away this time. Every single step is a deliberate act of taking back power. She is writing the final chapter of her story, and she's writing it on her own terms. And here's where the two stories diverge in such a beautiful way. Laurie needed to be alone to find her strength, right? But Lestat, whose entire problem was being alone, he finds his salvation in the exact opposite way. He realizes he can't beat Akasha by himself. His massive rock star ego, it's completely useless against her. So what does he do? To stand a chance against Akasha, he has to team up with the very vampire community he used to look down on. His maker, Marius, the ancient Maharet. All these powerful vampires have to come together. He learns that true power isn't being the one and only god on stage. It's about connection. It's a shared struggle. He thought he wanted the world's attention, but what he really needed was an alliance. So, the monster's gone. The final battle is won. So, what now? Where do you go from there? Well, the end of the fight is actually the beginning of a whole new life. A new kind of existence that both of our heroes have earned through blood, sweat, and pure defiance. And it all boils down to this one question, which actually comes from that Creed song at the end of H20. What's this life for? I mean, that's the whole point, isn't it? Before this, their lives were about running, about hiding, about just enduring. But now, after facing their demons, they're finally free to answer that question for themselves. And what's so great is that they find two totally different but equally perfect answers. Laurie, who is haunted by a constant, terrifying presence, finds her peace in silence. She is finally completely alone, and for the first time in 20 years, that's a good thing. And Lestat, who is haunted by loneliness, he finds his peace in companionship, walking into the daylight with Jesse, finally able to share his eternity instead of just suffering through it. And for Laurie, it really all comes down to this single moment. One final swing of an axe. That single action is everything. It's the period at the end of a 20-year-long sentence. It's her declaring to the universe, this life is mine now. And it is finally quiet. So why does any of this matter? I mean, beyond the cool horror stuff. Because underneath all the blood and the rock and roll, these stories are tapping into something universal. Being haunted, whether it's by trauma or loneliness or just the past, it can feel like a life sentence. But what these stories argue is that it's not. They show us that the very first step toward being free is a choice
a single act of rebellion against your own fear.
So in the end, both of these stories leave us with the same really powerful question. Because let's face it, we all have a monster. A Michael Myers, a Queen Akasha, some fear, some loneliness, some part of our past that haunts us. And the question these movies leave us with is, are you running or are you fighting?